Hello, everybody. Thank you for staying after Mr. Riggs, Mr. Owens. Tom, welcome.
Thank you.
To Cannes. Critical content, 2 years?
Year and a half.
Year and a half,
yeah.
okay.
Still young.
A lot of different content there.
Yeah.
What this session is about, the US conquering the world. Do you think that's something that can happen? Can these shows come out of America and be seen everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think traditionally what works in the United States reverberates around the world, so for sure. The challenge we've always faced as US producers was getting a format on in the US in the first place. Our buyers were risk averse, highly dependent on the inflow of international formats from territories like Holland and Israel that often did not work in the United States. That was tough for American producers like myself. We would lose to shows I knew I could outcreate and outproduce. I think the thing that has changed in the last year or two, look, the bad news 2 years ago, I couldn't get away an original format in the US. Now I can, I just can't own it.
Right.
Networks really desperate to exploit that last unexploited revenue stream are asking for format rights in the United States really for the first time and getting them. So they will buy, and I can make enormous production margin. I can't own what I create.
And do you think that makes a difference to the potential success of that show traveling? Do you believe the producer can sell and
yeah, well, look, makes a difference to the format traveling. My network buyers are really good at selling tape. They do it better than anyone. They'll be here this week doing it. And so a show like Catfish, which we make for MTV in the US, airs all over the world. My US episodes, Viacom, and I'll say this in this room because I've said it to their face, just hasn't exploited that format the way the producers could have had we controlled it. Like, we know that show and we love that show, and though it sounds big and difficult and scary to produce, it really isn't if we can teach you how to do it. But I've got to do that. A sales guy isn't going to do that at the Viacom stand.
Yeah. So thinking about the people that are in this room, there's potentially a treasure trove of formats coming from America that they might not necessarily be seeing straight away.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, it's one of the things I will do here this week is run around producer to producer, trying to see if we could get something away internationally before I lose the rights to it by making it in the US.
Right, so your goal here is to take these new developments, the new ideas that you've got, and try and find partners globally.
Right, either new development or that moment in time when we are still negotiating in the US, right? When it's meaningful in the international marketplace, because I can tell you it's gonna be on NBC or ABC, but I could still run home and carve it out of my deal, because once I close that deal, it's unlikely I control that format.
Right. And what about content coming in then? So for producers here, I mean, a show is going to have to be on air in their local territory to come to the US.
Not necessarily. We option 1 or 2 things a year at the markets off of sizzle reels and bring them back. I mean, typically some real work needs to have been done. It's hard for me to go back and pitch a paper format just because in my territory it's hard for me to sell a full-on paper format, but it can be unproduced. I don't know that the international ratings are that meaningful in the US anymore.
Right. So there is an opportunity for people to come to you.
Sure, we'll be taking those. You'll
be taking those pitches as well. And then why would they come to you as a producer as opposed to possibly an agent or a distributor?
Well, look, I think it is the same reason I am frustrated with network efforts to sell formats internationally. It's not really what they do, right? Those agents and distributors are excellent international salespeople, terrific at manning a stand. Our business in the US is just more bespoke. It is about relationships. It's about surety of execution, right? Because a lot of good stuff sells and then gets made terribly. I think we have an entree to our market in particular. We know it. We do enormous volume. We have output deals and network relationships. We can reimagine that format, tweak it for the US, and get it away in a way no sales agent can. And I'll be the one pitching it. And I hope that's meaningful to people. Yeah. That's my pitch anyway. We'll see.
I think you've done it.
Right.
But interestingly, in the last few years, again, actually, as we've seen this format trend, we see sort of big name talent attached as actually EP. I mean, sometimes on screen, but more recently as EPs. Is that an important thing? Should these guys be looking to?
Sometimes. I mean, look, I think one of the great developments of the last 6 months is the realization that the celebrity EP is kind of bullshit. There was a frustrating year in which I'd go to networks and they'd say, right, but who's the famous person attached to this? And you'd say, well, why would we pay that person? And so celebrity talent's still super meaningful. My sense is if they're willing to show up and do some work, either because they'll appear on the show, or in some cases, some of the sort of like celebrity game and house stuff we're developing, because they will cast what otherwise appears to be an uncastable show. Like a celebrity who will really work their Rolodex still valuable. Beyond that, I think probably not so much.
Yeah. And how do you work at Critical? I mean, is it all through you? I know you've got your incubator now. Do you have a series of producers that you sort of play stuff with?
How does it?
Yeah, in the US, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm both a quality control freak and sort of obsessed with margin, right? Because as US producers, that represents the bulk of our revenue, the bulk of our profit. It means we look to inboard almost everything, both because I think we do it better once we get it under our roof and because we can monetize it. So I have hired executive producers and staffed them. We have what will seem to any other similarly sized company to be a really large development staff. It's because we're taking the international content that we import, the original development that I create alongside the team, the output of those 18 pod deals and that millennial incubator. But so the output of 60 or 70 people domestically plus our international formats effort, and running it through those producers and that development team.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do it all in-house.
So there's enough outlets, inlets and outlets.
I mean, there has to be, right?
Yeah.
As budgets come down in the US, the solution is to go out and build volume.
Yeah.
So we'll make between 400 and 500 hours of television this year, which is a lot for a company of my size, and a lot when you consider we cobble it together in 8 and 10 and 12 episode orders.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of that tape, and I'm extraordinarily proud of what we've accomplished in the last 18 months. We're doing it sort of without a key franchise, right? I don't have a Survivor or a Big Brother or a Voice of which I do 40 to 100 million plus dollar episodes a year. We're building this business in cable and short run broadcast. I think that is the new normal, so I'm glad we figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
But it's hard, and it takes people.
And so, I mean, we just heard from Conrad. Is this SVOD world, is the Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, is that an area you're looking at as well? Is that
sure? I mean,
look,
we're in business with Amazon and Netflix. We have a project with Conrad I'm super excited about. I don't think I'm allowed to announce it here.
No.
But look, those are meaningful buyers, and we think about them first, which is new for me.
Yeah.
Hard to pin down, and I think Conrad even alluded to that on this stage. They're not looking to replace one network; they're looking to challenge television.
Yeah.
And so when you think about what you should bring to Netflix or Amazon, and to a lesser extent Hulu, the answer is everything. We're not going to do that. So finding a sweet spot there has been tricky. I think we're getting close.
Yeah. And do you think that there is a format, bearing in mind where we are, a format opportunity onto those channels? I mean, we heard a lot of things. There's a lot of access pieces in what Conrad was talking about. But what about
look,
they're
right,
on Netflix?
For sure.
Yeah.
I think they're all going to try big television-style broadcast free-to-air formats. It remains to be seen whether they will work and whether Beastmaster will be proven to have been successful at its price point. But there's certainly the opportunity for the kind of format I think my company does better than anyone. And by the way, that's also the stuff we're selling in the United States. It's sort of, it's format rooted in real world situations. That's what Catfish is fundamentally, right? That is looks like a docu about online dating, looks like a mystery that gets solved every hour, but in its DNA, that is a format with tentpole elements and predictable ups and downs in every episode that can be produced, over 7 seasons in the US and then replicated internationally. My guess is those are the formats that will work on Netflix and Amazon, and those shows that combine docu and format.
Yeah. So if somebody is lucky enough to get 10 minutes of your time in the next few days here, what should they
It's
think
not that
of?
hard, by the way.
Is it not?
around.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is where I'll be sitting.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. What should they be thinking about for you? I mean, what's on, or more importantly, not on your list?
Look, I haven't pitched anything in the last 18 months that hasn't begun with, we've spotted a trend or a phenomenon or a study. There's this thing happening or this app we saw, and here's how we would take it and turn it into a television show. I think the things that are selling in my marketplace right now are really tethered to interesting real world observations. And so that's certainly how we're thinking, and a good place to start.
Yeah, and so do you think, do you think this is a trend across the business? Like not, so it's slightly outside critical now. So do you think that's going to impact the ever-present question that we get, the next big format? Do you think because we're going for this?
The frightening conversation is how big will the next big format be, and will there be another game changer? I think there can be. I suspect when it happens, it is the kind of show we're talking about now. Maybe a shiny floor, but certainly with reality elements, more likely maybe out in the field. And again, about the way people live, the most overused words in television now, right? Organic, authentic, but overused for a reason, I think, because viewers now raised on a generation of this stuff call BS when they see it.
Yeah.
They are for the first time, and it's terrific, demanding a little reality in their reality. Like, that's easy for us to give to them. And I'm really excited to go out and pitch shows that speak to the world in which we live, as opposed to some crazy idea we cooked up in a conference room.
Yeah. And I think we're running out of time. Would you believe that's gone very, very quickly? If there was one message you wanted to get across in your, actually you've got 1 minute 40 seconds. Is there anything that you kind of want to tell the crowd here or ask the crowd? I mean,
look, we've said it. It's they've put the question, will the U.S. take over the world? Probably not.
Yeah.
But we're going to have a moment, right? I think there really is the chance to cause some trouble and make some noise and do something big in the U.S. And we do know that once you do that, it is easier to sell in the rest of the world. I do think, especially for people attending conferences like this, partnering with the right company in the United States, that may be me, it may not, but finding somebody there who believes in that idea, somebody who has entree into those networks, and somebody who really has a pre-existing relationship, like more meaningful than I can possibly say. And I guess, at least in our territory, we see agents offering to play that role, signing UK producers, signing international producers, walking them into networks in the United States with typically pretty shitty results. Yeah. You have a great meeting, there is feigned interest. I guess I would just say to people as a domestic producer, we get that a lot. They always appear sort of interested. Don't get that excited. It takes someone who really lives in that territory to stick around, grind, and close.
Yeah.
That was depressing.
And so the advice, it's directing that format to make sure it's hitting the right market.
Yeah, I think producers need to speak to producers.
Yeah.
That's what I would love to see happen here. These markets have become about conversations with distributors. To the extent we could hijack it to talk producer to producer, go home to our home territories, and sell one another's formats, I think we could succeed.
Fantastic. Well, perfectly timed. Thank you for that, Tom. A tour de force. Tour de force. Thank you very much, Tom Forman.
That was fun.
Everybody, please stay around. Unfortunately, you'll have to listen to me again, but we'll be joined in a moment by Paul Buccieri. Please stay where you are. Thank you.